All right, now can you hear me?
There we go.
Hey, look.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I've never
That's it.
used Discord before. I'm trying to figure out how it works.
That's right.
Um, okay, so my question is I recently saw a post from a Catholic married couple, very traditional. I admire them in a lot of respects, but they said something I never heard before. So they were arguing that it is holier for a married couple to abstain in marriage, and to practice continence. So an example they gave was St. Louis. One of the reasons he was canonized was because he would only come together with his wife when they were trying to conceive. And so their point was the church has always says it's holier. The church has always said it is holier to basically be completely celibate within marriage. And I never heard that. I'm a theology teacher, lots of things, and I wanted your thoughts.
Yep. The reason you haven't heard it is because the church doesn't teach that.
Okay, that's
You'd have a hard time finding an encyclical saying, hey, you're really, really holy if you only try to conceive during those couple hours of the entire month, when ovulation is going on, and any other time you're just not as holy as those abstinent people over there. It's like, that's not God's design for marriage, because think about what that means. That means like, okay, you flipped over a pregnancy test, 9 months abstinence, because, you can't be one, in any way, even if she just found out last week she's pregnant, can't do that. And then the baby's born, and, fertility might not come back for a year and a half. So that's another, year of abstinence for you guys, perhaps. And then, now fertility's back, 28 days of abstinence, 25, whatever it is. It's like, wait a minute, this is a far too rigorous interpretation of the church's teachings, which is not that the husband and wife need to deliberately intend to create human life every time they come together. All the church teaches is that you're not supposed to artificially thwart and block fertility during a naturally fertile time, which is contraception. And so if you want some ink on the church specifying that this is actually the teaching, go to John Paul II's book, Love and Responsibility, and later on in the book when he talks about topics of sexual ethics, he dives into this, that this is actually a misreading of church teaching, that you can only be one flesh during a particular time, intentionally willing for life to be created. That was never God's intention, because if it were, then even like the menopause hits, okay, you need to be celibate for the rest of your natural life, or you're just not holy. Well, here, guess what? Making love makes you holy when you do it according to God's plan. It's a sanctifying act. So sanctifying, the devil can't stand it. I've heard some priests even describe it as a minor exorcism, that the image of the man and the woman, and they come together is in one flesh, so profoundly mirrors the inner life of the Blessed Trinity and the life-giving love of Jesus Christ for his bride, the church. The devil cannot bear it. It sanctifies them. It helps them grow in love for one another. And so anyone making you think, you're not holy because you're doing that thing, and that's what caused original sin. Like, whoa, wait, what caused original sin? Oh yeah, because Adam and Eve, they became one flesh. Whoa, no. That has never been the church's teaching. God is the one who said, be fruitful and multiply. It's the first command he gave to mankind. After Noah's Ark and the whole thing was wiped out, what's the first command he gave to Noah? Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. And so sex is not the devil's invention. It's God's. Every inch of the human body comes from the imagination of the most blessed Trinity. And so that one flesh union is something he wants them to experience, even during non-fertile times, because he knows it's strengthening their sacramental bond. And the more they love each other, the better off the kids are going to be, the better off the church and the world are going to be. Now, you could take times of abstinence, mutually agreed upon for time of prayer, like St. Paul talks about. You could offer that up as a kind of fast or a prayer. But even St. Paul says, don't stay apart too long, because this is good. It brings you close together. So, thoughts?
Can you imagine Jason only wanting to get close to me when I was useful for birthing children? I mean, that's kind of a disgusting used thought. That makes me, that bothers me and irks me. And maybe I don't know anything about this couple. I don't know who they are. I don't know what their circumstances are. Or maybe it's a typo. God bless them. But at the end of the day, your connection with each other, your spousal connection, is huge in your marriage, and being there for each other, emotionally, mentally, physically, and keeping that bond strong. And when that is not happening, there is a distance, and there almost is a crack within the foundation of the marriage. Like, if you two aren't being close and you aren't being intimate, something's off, something's wrong, what's happening? And you need to make sure you're just like on the same page, because when you are connected and you are close and you're living out God's will and you have a good prayer life together, you want to be close, right? And so to not have that within your marriage, you're kind of shaking your foundation a little bit, because it keeps you connected in the way that no one else in the world can be connected to your husband except you.
And if you think about it, I'm not a biologist or anything, but I wonder if humans are just about the only creature that engages in the sexual act outside of the fertile time. Because you think of animals in the rut or this or that. I mean, my son Michael and I were up in the mountains, just a couple weeks ago, and you see all the elk running through the forest, and the cows aren't anywhere around. I mean, the bucks are like, we don't need you. We ain't hanging out with girls because y'all ain't in the rut. But when that rut's happening, we'll be seeing you then. It's like, wait a minute. It's almost, in a sense, animalistic to not see the beauty of intimacy outside of procreation, just as if you flipped it backwards, where those who are, want to contraceptive, like, look, I want anything but the life-giving potential. To me, this is the opposite side, just the wrong coin, of just like all we want is the procreation. And God, I think, if he really wanted it that way, why would he create people that could only get fertile a couple days of the entire month? If this really was the church teaching, the church has done a miserable job of explaining, oh, by the way, you're really, really holy if you abstain for 25 days a month. There's a reason you ain't going to find that anywhere in the egg.
Yeah, no, that is totally kind of elaborating on my thoughts. I love what you just said about the animalistic side of it, because I guess the guy, he did say, he's like,
just so we don't get pushback in the comments, dolphins do engage in recreational sexual activity.
Okay, well, dolphins are awesome, so that's fine.
That makes sense.
They're intelligent. Yeah. So.
I just, like, they had said their first statement was sex is holy and ordained by God, and then went straight into, but okay, it's not as holy as abstaining. And I thought it just kind of created that kind of dangerous mindset that I've seen. I'm engaged now, and a lot of my friends are married, and kind of, being chased all throughout your relationship and then turning off that switch, if you will. And then I've had a lot of friends almost feel guilty for embracing their spouse in that way. And I just thought that their mentality kind of fed that. So I appreciate you guys elaborating on what I felt to be true, but I wanted to double check that I wasn't wrong.
Yeah, I think the devil just wants to get us out of balance one way or the other, of just like, either you can't say no and you're always demanding of your spouse with no regard for their need, or this idea of just like, I am just so darn holy, you can't touch me for the next 25 days. It's like, to me, that's, I think the devil would cause division through that, and instead of peace and harmony and a growth of virtue of love. But, I remember there was, a young man who's considering the priesthood and also thinking about married life, and he was friends with Pope John the 23rd, and I think one of the Pope's assistants, whether it was a bishop or whatever, and they were kind of guiding along this path of vocational discernment. And then the young man ended up deciding that he was called to the sacrament of marriage, and the bishop or whatever informed the Pope of this, of John the 23rd, of, I don't want to give you the bad news. The young man, he ended up falling for the trap. And the Pope was like, what? No. We don't have 6 sacraments and a trap. We have 7 sacraments. And so the sacrament of marriage is intended by God to sanctify people. It's an external sign instituted by Christ to confer grace. And so the vows spoken on the altar, you then go to the sanctuary of your bedroom, to the altar of the bed, and you're exchanging the wedding vows and renewing the wedding vows in the flesh, that I give myself to you freely, totally, faithfully, fruitfully. And, just as some people on anniversaries, whatever, go through some like renewal of the vows kind of thing, where they're just kind of strengthening the vows. You're doing that in the flesh. And so to me, if anything, excessive abstinence could be a sign of a lack of holiness in some couples, of just like, whether I'm ticked off at you, or whether like, you don't deserve it, or I want to manipulate you through abstinence. Like, there could be a lack of abstinence there. But in rare cases, there could be Josephite marriages. You think of the valid marriage of Joseph and the Virgin Mary, that was a celibate one. And if you look in the history of the saints, there are some rare cases, rare rare is the key word, but they do exist. But what makes them holy, but then this one not holy? They listened to the will of God and they did it. And so we have to be able to listen. And if we're coming up with something, hey, I think God's calling me to be abstinent, with Crystalina for the next 8 years, I might want to run that by a spiritual director. Like, okay, is that really coming from the Holy Spirit, or is it coming from a misdirected piety that thinks of sexuality as something kind of base and, I am, more spiritual, and so we don't have those physical things drag down our souls. It's like, that's kind of Gnostic, that's dualist. That's not really the Christian understanding of human sexuality.
Trust your God-given intuition when you feel something is off, or you're being told something, or someone's trying to convince you of something, and deep down, God whispers, God lets us know. Just trust that and find out whatever you're questioning, but don't ever just go with anything. And you always hear those little tugs of like, oh, that's not 100% right. Just trust that God-given intuition, and with you and your soon-to-be spouse, just pray about everything, be very Eucharistic, and don't let those cracks get in.
And in the meantime, speaking of strengthening marriages, it's past 7 o'clock and it's date night, so we're out of here because I want to go on a date with her. And so, we like to do the Q&As followed by date night or adoration. So,
fun. I hope that.
But thank you for calling in.
Question. That was a good one,
Ava.
Silly.
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, I'd encourage you to please like, subscribe, share, comment. That helps show it to more people. And then also submit your question at the email live@chastity.com, or submit your question or call in through our Discord server so we can talk to you in person on our next show.